Hello, internet friends. My name is Rich, or you can call me Darth Geekula. Here doing a quick Darth's haul video on not new toys particularly, but also not vintage. They are instead the Clone Wars animated series action figures. Now, when most people think of the Clone Wars animated series, they think of the Dave Filoni produced Clone Wars, which is a really good show. However, I am talking about the figures based on not the Dave Filoni Clone Wars, but instead the Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars animated series that came out after Attack of the Clones and before Revenge of the Sith. So these were an animated series that ran in between those two movies. So it sort of filled in the gap between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. They were also, they were micro episodes, so they were only a couple minutes long, but they were very cool, very stylistic. If you are familiar with Tartakovsky's other well-known cartoon, which is Samurai Jack, you'll realize how stylistic that cartoon is. That was very similar to his Clone Wars. It sort of combined spaghetti westerns and fantasy and samurai movies and, Star Wars, of course, into one really, really cool series. I actually prefer it to the Filoni Clone Wars, which, again, I like, but I love Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. So Hasbro did bring out a series of figures. The series ran from 2003 to 2005. I don't think it was consecutive. Again, the episodes were only a couple minutes long, but around that time frame, and the figures came out in that time as well. They are clearly based on the animated series and not meant to look realistic per se. I saw a guy was advertising locally that he had a lot of these for sale. Not a lot, but a lot for sale. And I always wanted to own these because I thought they looked really cool. I love the cartoon, and of course I love to waste my money on Star Wars. To the best of my knowledge, and my fellow Canucks can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think these were ever released in Canada. And the only place I ever saw them was at a specialty kind of collectible store where they were just way too expensive. So I was very happy to see a guy selling a bunch of these. And so I went over and snatched them up. So we'll take a quick look at all of them. Here is Asajj Ventress. Oh, one more thing I was going to mention. Tartakovsky's Clone Wars is no longer considered canon. Which is a shame, but I'm not going to cry about that. But his Clone Wars actually introduced Asajj Ventress, and it also introduced, General Grievous as well. So there are a lot of characters that were created for Tartakovsky's Clone Wars that did end up in Filoni's Clone Wars, even though only Filoni's Clone Wars is considered canon of the two. So there you go. So here's Asajj Ventress, possibly the first Asajj Ventress figure I ever had. The articulation is very limited. She has a very nice ball-jointed neck, and she rotates at the waist, and her arms rotate at the shoulders, and that is it for her. She comes with a stand. They all come with stands, these very cool Star Wars Clone Wars stands, but she doesn't actually have any peg holes. I don't know if you can see that. But because of her dress or her skirt, she really doesn't need the stand. So there's Asajj Ventress, my first Asajj Ventress figure. A very cool Mace Windu. Again, very limited articulation, just at the shoulders, the head. He does not have a ball joint, just goes backwards and forwards. He does have a cut wrist, or I guess a cut forearm on his right arm, but not his left. His left arm, his left arm is, looks like it's in kind of a cool force-wielding pose, but doesn't really look very natural when you lift it up. So these really are meant to just kind of stand there if you're a collector. But again, he comes with the stand, and there's his lightsaber as well. Here is Anakin. Again, these are all stylized, which I don't mind because they're based on a cartoon, but his leg is in a very wonky position. So he does look a little bit strange, but you can still get him into some kind of cool poses. Again, no leg articulation. There is articulation at the shoulders and the head, and his robotic arm does rotate. So that is something where you'll see one arm will have kind of a waist or upper arm swivel, and the other one won't. Again, very cool figure. And if you have Anakin, you also have to have Obi-Wan. This is kind of a cartoon version of what people call the Jesus Obi-Wan. Basically what he looked like in Attack of the Clones, but obviously in an animated form. Very cool figure. I love that he's in a two-handed lightsaber pose. Also, the other thing you'll notice, all the lightsabers for these figures have a cool kind of flaring, sparkling kind of thing. I didn't describe that very well at all. But you see what I mean. They kind of have where the lightsaber is kind of shooting out as it erupts from the lightsaber hilt. That sounded very 50 Shades of Greyish. I didn't mean that. Anyway, the lightsabers are also very stylish, is what I'm trying to say. Here is Count Dooku, who looks very stylized. Again, not a lot of articulation, but he does have a really nice ball-jointed neck. He and Asajj Ventress are the only two that have the ball-jointed neck. Most of them are just a regular cut neck. He only comes with two lightsabers, although you can see he has two lightsaber hilts at his sides. They are not removable. Again, his head moved, I mentioned that, and his arms move sort of at this kind of a mid-arm swivel. And this arm actually has the mid-arm swivel as well as up and down at the shoulder. And I don't think the legs have any articulation at all. And yeah, he's very, very stylized. I will also say General Grievous in Tartakovsky's Clone Wars was a really cool, scary villain. And he was never that cool in any other form of media. I'm not sure why George Lucas kind of made him a bit of a buffoon in Revenge of the Sith. But in Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, he was super, super bad A. Like, he was really cool. Then we have Dirge, who I think only ever appeared in Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. I don't think he ever made it into Dave Filoni's Clone Wars. He's very cool, kind of a Terminator-esque character if you ever saw him in the cartoon. He should have a lance, which he did not come with, so I'm going to have to track down some sort of vibroblade lance for him to use. But again, because he never really showed up anywhere else, he's not a character I care that much about. And then I got a couple of clones. I forget their rank, but that's okay. I believe this one actually came in a DVD 3-pack. There were a couple figures that were exclusive to these DVD packs. I think this is where he came from. Again, oh, and a lot, they do have rotation at the waist too, I should mention. Very cool. He comes with two blasters, and he actually has some weapon storage for each of them. He has some holsters. They don't fit in the holsters great. I mean, he could be holding both guns, or he's kind of doing a, come on this way, guys, kind of pose. Very cool. And this other clone trooper that I have. So, yeah, I personally love these guys. I've always wanted to have these figures. I don't collect a lot of 3 1/4 Star Wars figures. I'm mainly 6-inch. But it's funny, for a lot of the animated shows, I do like to get the 3 1/4 scale figure. So, there you go. Very cool figures. Not a lot of articulation. It doesn't bother me too much with these guys. They are all in pretty dynamic poses. I think they look great on the shelf. If you have never seen Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, I highly, highly recommend it. I don't believe these DVDs are in print anymore, but this Volume 1 and Volume 2 is the entire series. Again, they're only a few minutes long, but if you can find these or find it, somewhere, definitely check them out. And you can also see how these figures match up very well with the art of the series. So yeah, there you go, guys. So Tartakovsky's animated Clone Wars action figures, definitely recommend if you're a Star Wars fan. These are well worth your time to seek out. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go watch Walking Dead now. Oh, and also I have this Anakin. I almost forgot. This is a very scene-specific Anakin, where he was fighting with two lightsabers, his own and one of Asajj Ventress' lightsabers. I don't know if I'll display him, because he is a very specific Anakin. But whenever you're bare-chested, you're a little bit cooler. Okay, guys, now until next time, and after Walking Dead, I will see ya.